In 1799, a dead animal arrived at the British Museum in a shipping crate from Australia. The naturalist who opened the crate picked up a pair of scissors and started cutting into the specimen's face. He was looking for stitches. He was certain that someone had sewn a duck's bill onto the body of a beaver as a joke. He could not find any stitches, because there were none. For most of recorded history, scientists dismissed stories of impossible animals as superstition, traveler's fantasy, or outright fraud. They were wrong so consistently and so confidently that the pattern itself becomes the story. 4 creatures that science declared impossible, ridiculous, or extinct, and in each case the creature was simply waiting to be taken seriously. George Shaw was the keeper of natural history at the British Museum, one of the most respected taxonomists alive. When the first platypus skin arrived from New South Wales, shipped by Captain John Hunter, governor of the colony, Shaw did not marvel at it. He attacked it with scissors. The specimen had the flat bill of a duck, the tail of a beaver, webbed feet with claws, and fur like an otter. It was clearly a hoax. A chimera stitched together by some colonial taxidermist with too much time and a dark sense of humor. Shaw cut along every seam he could find. He tugged at the bill. He pried at the edges where fur met skin. He even noted in his published description the exact places where a fraudster would most likely have attached the bill to the skull. He found no thread, no glue, no join marks, no evidence of human assembly whatsoever. He published his description in 1799 with a note admitting that he could not rule out the most remarkable deception. He named it Platypus anatinus and moved on, visibly uncomfortable. The discomfort lasted decades. The platypus kept getting worse. Reports came back that it laid eggs. Scientists rejected this. Mammals do not lay eggs. That is what makes them mammals. It took until 1884, 85 years after Shaw's scissors, for William Caldwell to confirm that the platypus was in fact an egg-laying mammal. He sent a one-line telegram to the British Association for the Advancement of Science, Monotrems oviparius ovum meroblastic, the most polite way possible of saying everyone had been wrong for nearly a century. And they were still not finished being surprised. The males have venomous spurs on their hind legs, one of the only venomous mammals on Earth. The venom is powerful enough to incapacitate a grown human and cause pain that morphine cannot touch. And the bill is not decorative. It contains tens of thousands of electroreceptors that detect the faint electrical impulses of prey moving through water. A platypus hunts with its eyes closed, navigating entirely by the electrical signatures of shrimp and insect larvae hiding in river mud. Shaw's scissors never stood a chance against an animal this committed to being impossible. 10,000 miles north, another impossible animal was being ignored. The people of Komodo Island in Indonesia had been telling outsiders about the aura for generations. A giant lizard, 10 feet long, eats deer whole, runs as fast as a dog, can bring down a water buffalo. The Dutch colonial administrators heard these stories and filed them under local superstition. A land crocodile the size of a canoe living on a small volcanic island was not something that required investigation. In 1910, Lieutenant Jacques van Stein van Hensbroek finally went to look. He arrived on the island with a rifle and a healthy skepticism. What he found was not a crocodile and not a legend. He shot one of the lizards and sent the skin to Peter Owens at the Zoological Museum in Bogor. Owens published a paper in 1912 describing Varanus komodoensis, a monitor lizard that could reach 10 feet in length and weigh over 150 pounds. Western science acknowledged the Komodo dragon exactly 1 century after local people stopped trying to convince anyone it existed. In 1926, W. Douglas Burden led an expedition that brought back 12 dead specimens and 2 live ones. The live ones were displayed at the Bronx Zoo in New York, where visitors lined up to watch what was essentially a dinosaur eat goats. Burden described his expedition in such vivid terms: a remote volcanic island inhabited by prehistoric monsters that charged at men and swallowed prey whole, that it directly inspired a filmmaker named Marion Cooper. Cooper's film was called King Kong. The largest living lizard on Earth was a myth until a colonial officer decided to actually walk to where people said it lived. Then it was suddenly real and suddenly a movie. Deep in the Ituri rainforest of Central Africa, something else was hiding in plain sight. The Mbuti people of the Congo had always known about it. A large animal with the body of a horse, the legs of a zebra, and a neck too long for either. Europeans called it the African unicorn, a creature that everyone described but no outsider had ever seen. In 1890, the explorer Henry Morton Stanley mentioned that pygmy communities spoke of a donkey-like animal in the deep forest. Scientists assumed he was describing a known species poorly, or exaggerating a story told to him by people they considered unreliable. In 1901, Sir Harry Johnston, the British governor of Uganda, received strips of skin and 2 skulls from the Ituri forest. The skin had bold white and black stripes on the hindquarters and rich chocolate brown on the body. Johnston assumed it was a species of forest zebra. He sent it to London for classification. It was not a zebra. It was not a horse. It was not related to anything with stripes. It was the only living relative of the giraffe, a 6-foot-tall forest browser with a prehensile tongue 18 inches long, capable of cleaning its own ears, and hindquarters patterned like nothing else in the animal kingdom. The Okapi had been living in the dense rainforest of Central Africa for millions of years, known to every local population in the region, described by multiple Western explorers, and dismissed as legend by every European scientist who heard about it. It was classified in 1901 and remains one of the most elusive large mammals alive today. The scientific community had spent a decade calling it impossible, while the Mbuti were walking past it on their way to collect water. And then there was the fish that had been dead for 66 million years. December 22nd, 1938, East London, South Africa. Marjorie Courtenay Latimer was the 32-year-old curator of a small local museum with a shoestring budget and a passion for natural history. She had an arrangement with the fishing trawlers at the docks. Whenever they brought in anything unusual, they called her. Captain Hendrik Goosen's crew called that morning. Among the day's haul of sharks and rays was a fish unlike anything Courtenay Latimer had ever seen, 5 feet long, steel blue with iridescent white flecks, covered in hard armor-like scales, and its fins were not flat paddles. They were thick, fleshy, and structured like limbs, like a fish that was halfway to walking. She sketched it and contacted J.L.B. Smith, the most prominent ichthyologist in South Africa. When Smith saw her sketch, he did not respond calmly. He later wrote that he would not have been more surprised if a dinosaur had walked down the street. The fish was a coelacanth, a species the fossil record said had gone extinct 66 million years ago, at the same time as the dinosaurs. The last known coelacanth fossil dates to the late Cretaceous period. Then nothing. 66 million years of blank rock. Then a fishing trawler off the coast of South Africa. Smith named it Latimeria chalumnae in honor of Courtenay Latimer and the Chalumna River near where it was caught. He spent the next 14 years obsessively searching for a second specimen, placing ads in newspapers across East Africa and offering rewards to fishermen. A second coelacanth was not found until 1952, hauled up off the Komodo Islands. In 1998, a completely separate species was discovered in Indonesia. They are still alive, still swimming in the deep water off volcanic islands, still looking exactly like their fossils from the age of dinosaurs, as if 66 million years was not worth changing for. A naturalist attacked a platypus with scissors because he could not accept that nature would design something that ridiculous. Colonial administrators ignored a 10-foot lizard because the people reporting it were not European. Scientists called a forest giraffe a unicorn because admitting it was real meant admitting they had been wrong. And the entire field of paleontology wrote off a fish that was still swimming. The pattern is always the same. Someone reports something impossible. The experts say no, and the creature just keeps existing quietly until someone finally walks over and looks. Subscribe and hit the bell. Next episode, lose the game and you die. Bare bones. Simple stories about the weirdest things that actually happened.